My name is Erika and I'm one of the co-founder at 33 Fuel. Welcome to another episode. Today's guest is Kim Ingleby. She is a multi-award winning mind-body coach. She has coached incredible people, including Team GB athletes and also some professional dancers of Strictly Come Dancing. She also is a founder of the Energized Performance. In this episode, Kim will give us the tools to overcome fears. Kim's mission is to help to unlock your potential in life, sport and work. We have a mission too here at 33. We produce the most powerful natural sport nutrition to help you to achieve your goals. It's time to introduce Kim Ingleby, multi-award winning mind-body coach. Enjoy it. Welcome, Kim, and I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. I'm very excited about. Before I start to ask hundreds of questions, I would like to ask you if you can give us a quick overview of your sporting background and how your life brought you to this unique coaching position that you are now.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to the interview, and that's a big question. How did I get to where I am? So sporting wise, I actually rode horses, 3-day eventing. So I was born in Scotland and I rode for the under 21 team, and I basically worked in every single yard and rode and competed horses. And then I just couldn't really fund it. And so I moved my horse to a bike and started triathlon, which I'd never done. I'd never really sort of done the swim and the bike at all. And I did triathlon and I got up to age group levels. I did the Worlds and the Europeans with that. And then I got really ill by swimming in open water and had a lot of complications. And so that took me quite a while to get back, and my balance still sort of on the bike, and swimming isn't great. So I learnt how to sort of run again, and now I do ultras and wild marathons, and in between in my recovery I tried some stage shows, which was just interesting. So that's sort of the sporting transitions, and through that I always had a fascination of like just the human body and the human mind, and you know how we often kind of don't believe in ourselves and we don't realize our potential, and so even as a teenager I thought I really want to help people twofold: one, improve their performance in sport, and actually sort of unlock their full potential, and then on the other side I want them to sort of grow in confidence mentally, so, and also enjoyment, so not always limit themselves. So that then took me on to a big sort of learning training, you know, through all of the mind and body coaching, and I founded Energized Performance in 2004, and here we are.
You mentioned you had a disease, and so the Vals disease, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So maybe if you can tell us more exactly what it is, and mainly because you are a coach and you help people to deal with big changes in their own life.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it and how it was to deal with a battle, and how you coach now people to battle with their own changes.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And although I would never wish it upon anybody, you know, being that ill taught me a lot of things. And so Vals disease is from swimming in water where there's a bacteria. I mean, I joke about maybe from rat's urine, but that's like one of the sources. And it really, you can get it on a mild level. You know, if anyone's listening and they do open water swimming, don't panic. You know, I swam for 10 years and I think I say unlucky, but I also freely admit that I think maybe I was overtrained and, you know, possibly close to like adrenal fatigue or athlete burnout. But I didn't feel that at the time. You know, I was just on that constant sort of like I'm training and I'm working and I'm coaching and I'm building my business and I'm feeling great. But I sort of really like say that because I think a lot of athletes, you know, they don't actually rest enough they don't take that recovery on board, and they're maybe working full time, and they have a family. So yeah, I mean, I was really, really ill. It took me right out to the point where I didn't really even know my name. Liver and kidneys weren't working properly, and when I'm working with athletes, it took my identity away, because part of my identity was, I do triathlon, I'm an athlete, I do these things. And then without that, it was really, really challenging to come back from it. One, to actually get my body, physically okay, and I still have the legacy of a lot of the things. And two, to mentally have some confidence in my ability. And I remember, just even doing a 10K, coming back seemed like a massive challenge. And so now coaching, I was coaching before, but coaching now, I really help people with, disorders, mentally or physically, who say, like, I can't do that. I'm like, you absolutely can. We just maybe need to approach it differently, and also do it with a little bit more patience and a bit more consistency, but a bit more rest. And so what I found is helping people of all abilities, like right up to Olympic level, that they relate to me better because I have the story. Whereas before it was almost like, oh, you don't understand. And now, like, they've maybe watched my TedX, or they've just read about it in a magazine, or they see like the progression of what I've done, and they realize, oh, maybe I could do something too. So although I would really wish I hadn't had it, I am grateful for what's come out of it, and also the professional skills that I have, that I've fully used on myself. And therefore I feel even more authentic with other people, because I'm like, if you do things, it genuinely makes a difference, and I genuinely believe that you can do it.
No,
don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, I think you're absolutely right. Knowing that the person passed through a very difficult moment in their life with a big challenge, you can relate it better, because you can understand. You say, okay, she passed through this, so she knows what it means really to be in the position of finding a solution. Yeah. And actually probably experience also fear, because how do you find the courage to take a specific decision, and to how you manage the stress related to that decision that you had to take to overcome the fear?
That's a really, really good question. I mean, fear is, emotions are normal, and on the spectrum of, like, say, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. So if I'm going into some of my NLP training, like, those emotions are normal emotions. And I think we often suppress them and say we shouldn't feel them, but actually they're normal. And if you look at that, you want to look at, like, what are your happy emotions? And I think a lot of athletes are quite controlled in the middle of not expressing something that's been really amazing, for fear of maybe judgment or it not happening again. And then they don't want to express all their fears in case they get worse. But fear can be your friend if you turn and face it. So the more we kind of move away from it, and we sort of are like, oh, I'm scared of this, it almost gets bigger and bigger. Whereas if you can turn and face it and look at, why have I got this fear, and how can I start to change the fear so it's reduced, then it will reduce with little simple steps. And sometimes you can do that on your own, and more often than not you do need to ask for support. And I'm very open that as a coach, I always have coaching. I think it's really important to be in a coached role as a coach, because then you know how it feels for your athletes and your clients, and you know that it's really uncomfortable to work through fear, but the best bit is, if you work through it, you grow, and, like, other opportunities come that you just don't even realize. Whereas if you stay in fear, like, everything gets smaller because you get stuck with this fear. I'm not saying it's easy, like, it's not easy, it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, but it is possible. And I think sometimes people listen to my story and go, well, my thing isn't that big, or it wasn't as bad as you, or whatever. And everyone has trauma, loss, illness, and how it affects different people it's not like how big is your thing and how big's mine. It's just like, I'm not okay at the moment and I need some help. Or just a simple example, like I'm swimming open water and I have a lot of fear. That's a very common thing. People, they get nervous in the open water. What can I do to work through this? And I think the common thing is people put themselves under pressure to go from like fear to then excellence. And they're not very patient with themselves. So in the middle, it's like you have maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks of like really uncomfortable swimming. But if you work through that, you will start to then be okay. And then you can go from okay to actually maybe enjoying it. And then you'll be like me, who's gone the whole journey. And now I'm back to like fear of open water, but let's begin again. And so, it is that sort of catchphrase of like, life is a journey and you don't know what's going to happen, but you can control some things and take ownership of them.
You're so wise. It's really...
I've had a lot of crazy things happen. So I think if you believe in some more spiritual side, I think I've been sent these lessons to then help other people. And so before I got the Vase disease, I actually, when I was riding a horse, I fell off underwater. So she jumped into water, the horse, lost her footing and fell on top of me. So the horse was on top of me underwater. And I had internal bleeding in my kidneys and spent a couple of weeks in hospital with drains. And that's kind of like not even out there because of the vials. But I bring that up now because I gave the example of open water swimming, that I had an unknown fear of it. So when I started triathlon, I jumped freely into the open water and had a massive panic attack. And the guys with me said, "You didn't tell us you were scared of open water." And I said, "I didn't know I was." But as soon as I got in the water, I felt like the horse and I was drowning again. So why I share this is that whole process of me going from the panic attack to doing an Ironman and swim was using my NLP and coaching skills myself and being consistent and having a lot of techniques that I had to use the whole time. And now, if I want to do it again, I know I have to repeat the whole process. But that's a choice for me, and I know that I could do it rather than I don't feel I have a choice. So hopefully people listening can think, if you have a fear, you do have a choice. So if you're not turning to face it, you don't have to, but remember that that's your choice. And sometimes in fear, we don't feel like we have a choice. And maybe you don't, but there will be a point where you think, I could do this differently. And maybe that's just reaching out to me or you and going, what could I do? Because I don't know. And that's the starting point.
So basically, it's like asking question to yourself when you find yourself in a fear position or feeling, basically. You just have, if I understood well, you need to start to question where is coming from the fear, where you can find these tools. If you want actually to overcome the fear of open water or fear of, not performing as you would like, which kind of tools you can use and where you can find them.
So, I'm trained, I did my NLP masters in hypnotherapy and timeline therapy and embraining. If we're just looking at the head side of my training, I've done a lot of physical body work training as well. And then there's a lot of sports psychology models, which is different but similar. And so if you look at any of those terms, they will come up with, techniques and methods and books, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. And we can put in show notes some, books and things that I would recommend. But the simplest thing is for someone to buy like a plain notebook and put the date of when they're doing, whatever their training is, and write down, as well as like the physical training, like write down how they're actually feeling. Like, how did you feel today? Like, did you get fear? Were you fatigued? So many people don't realize that there's so much connection in writing down your feeling, and you'll see patterns. Like, are you always fatigued on a Monday when you do this session, and therefore is it useful, or could you adapt it? Do you always get fearful when you do this session? But also, are you always telling everyone that you're scared? Are you, what are the stories that you're telling? It's really complex, and this isn't like a, like black and white answer, but hopefully people are picking things up. And that's why I say sometimes having your fear is like it's necessary. It's a negative motivation. It moves you away from something you don't want, or it keeps you safe because you have a level of fear, and in a sort of back to front way, it keeps you safe. And so when we're looking at removing fear, I look at the rest of the person's life. So I'm like, do you have the space to work with this? Because although you might have a lot of fear, maybe it's still like you know how that works for you. Whereas if we change it, there will be a period that's uncomfortable. So say you're moving house, moving location, you're changing jobs, or you're coming up to a main competition, I'd say just let's do some other things that will enhance your performance. And then when you've got some downtime, let's work on reducing the fear. But it's everyone's different. Like some people process quickly, some people take longer. So it's understanding yourself. But a mind training journal as well as a physical training journal is invaluable to see patterns. And I would get people to write down feelings and energy and sleep quality with women particularly, but some men, but women I would do hormone cycles, so period, how they feel. And there's just so much in that tells me as much as the data. And so if someone's completely data driven, but they're disconnected with their feelings, then that is what I work with a lot of high end athletes who are like, I'm not getting the results that I want. I'm like, how do you feel? And they just look at me and go, well, my data says this. And I mean, the data is obviously amazing, but I'm like, but how do you feel? Like, are you connected to your body? Are you enjoying your sport? Are you, do you know why you're doing this? And the common answer is like, no, because I'm not performing. I'm like, well, let's get you enjoying it first. And it's that reconnecting with yourself.
Thanks so much for sharing this. It's a very good tool, and it's interesting because you can use it for fear and maybe also for other kind of sensation that you have, because it's not just about if you can use, basically it's the kind of, you gave a simple nice tool of action that actually you can use it for fear or for other issue that you can have.
Use it across life. I get it to people to do it in like relationships of any context. So like coaching relationship, club relationships, love, family, because that has an impact on, how we perform in sport if we're talking about that, but also reverses back into how we feel about life. So often do it for people like reviewing in like relationships, like how do you feel with your communication and your communication with your own relationship with yourself. I mean, that's another whole podcast probably, but it's just fascinating because if we talk about endurance athletes particularly, they have a lot of internal dialogue normally, and they have a lot of time when they're just cycling, like a long distance, say. And so that internal relationship with yourself and the understanding of yourself is really important.
You mentioned embraining, so I'm so fascinating about this subject. So can you tell us what is embraining and what makes it unique?
Yeah, I love that when we spoke before the interview that you picked up on it, and you were talking about the head and the heart, and how like we often are led, like I was talking about earlier, the data. The head thinks logically and the data says X, so I should do Y, and then your heart feels this. So when I did all my physical training, so like athletics, triathlon, personal training, sports therapy, coaching, then did all the NLP, and I was looking for some more professional development skills that would kind of link even more depth to the mind and body connection. And I came across embraining through the NLP, and it's linking the head, the heart, and the gut principle. So like you said, the head and heart, but head, heart, gut, and saying that, the heart and the gut both have lots of neurons that represent, almost like brains in themselves. And if somebody can really understand the physiology and the emotive effect of language and performance on their head, heart, and gut, their overall performance can be enhanced. And that would be like across life. So in terms of, being able to make decisions, being able to commit to yourself, being able to get your body to respond. It's a really powerful tool, but it is just a tool. Like lots of people say, oh, this is one thing, and I'm often asked, like, what's your one thing? And I'm like, my one thing is everything, because the mind and body is so complex and fascinating that I feel like it needs to be respected and linked together. So embraining for me is another tool that helps me connect people to their whole self, so head, heart, and gut. It also helps me helps people understand how their nutrition and their performance and their recovery is working when they start to think about like their gut health, and then linking their gut health to that gut feeling and that visceral feeling in their brain of like, my gut says this, but my head says this, and my heart says that. And there is science in the embraining that links it up.
As you said, we have three brains, or we call it also three intelligent, three brains. So three powers.
Yeah.
How do we know which one to follow?
That's a great question. I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to answer that in terms of like, how do we know which to follow? Because everybody comes from a different background. So, if I'm working with an athlete who has a strong religious background, then head, heart, gut will be overridden potentially by their religious belief, and then we may work with the head, heart, and gut, but also their religious beliefs and opinions. And then with others, they're looking at like the chakras and the energy, and they're connecting that with the head, heart, and gut. And for some people listening, they don't think that's really there, but the diversity of the people that I work with, I really respect like those two areas. When you really get to know someone, they are really important to people. And a lot of, say, my friends before you wouldn't think that these people have these influences because you just see them doing their sport. But if you really know them and you build trust and rapport, those can be really influential. Then if you're saying head, heart, gut, I think it's a combination of them all, and you want them to be congruent. So you want them to align, and that's where my training is, that you want them to align. So your physical body wants to be healthy and fit and responding and reduced inflammation, and your heart wants to be connected and like feeling the joy for it, and then your head, logically, it has to make sense in terms of like security, fight or flight responses, and that links back down to the gut, all like links together. So it's really individual, but I think it comes back to the individual understanding, how does my body feel when they're aligned, and how do I, like, logically, what do I want to make happen this year? And then feeling wise, what makes me feel good?
If I'm trying to connect with these three brains, can meditation help? I mean, how you align the three brains in the way that they will help you out to achieve exactly what you want and not get too stressed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So meditation, obviously, is like millions of years old and very well respected and proven to help connect you to your body, as in yoga as well. But I find that some people find like conventional, say, sitting down meditation quite hard for them to connect with themselves to start with. So I introduce meditation to people through breath work and movement meditation. So going for a walk, no phone, no digital, and just being with yourself and taking a concept out with you that you want to, say, reduce any fear, any anxiety. So it's not true meditation. You're giving somebody something to think about, but you're actually having that focused intention, and you're walking without any distractions. And people can find that really, really challenging, but it's a really good way of introducing someone to themselves without distraction. And then basic yoga moves. I like the Tibetan 5 yoga moves, which they link in with sort of just the energy system in your body. But I introduced them when I was training for the Ironman, because I used to get a lot of problems with my knees, and I was like, I need a yoga practice that I do every morning. And I've done that for 5 years now, disregarding where I am. I've done it in airports, hotels, and even if I just do the 5 moves once, so it literally takes a minute, but it just opens up and moves my body. Simple yoga moves that are linked with the areas that you get problems with. So in my practice, it's like, I don't just say go and meditate, because it doesn't normally work. It's like, where are we starting from and what can we integrate in? And so with some of the dancers I've worked with Strictly Come Dancing, so it's Come Dancing with the Stars over there, but I help them with breath work and some basic yoga moves to start with, which gets them into meditating. And now some of them like have tried to meditation, but if I'd said you need to sit and meditate for 20 minutes, it would have been too much to start with.
That is very interesting, because you're absolutely right. Breathing, it can actually is a super powerful tool that it just open your mind, help you out to reduce the stress.
So what are the key things that I need to put in to make myself kind of just balance this stress? So there might be a couple of supplements, there might be some, quick, more convenient snacking type foods and shakes we put in, but we put in a baseline that goes, this is not optimal, but they'll kind of like fill a few of the blocks because this is a really busy time. But then at the end of it, you have a 4-week gap where you're consciously saying no to things, so that at the end of it, you rebalance. So you've gone from a peak of being super busy for a big competition, training for an Ironman, the dancing or whatever, and then you consciously go, in that time, my priority is self-care, family time, relationships, fun. And so you have that rebalance. And I think the priority cycle, as I call it, of like, what's your 3 priorities for each quarter in the year? If you ebb and flow that, I think that works for 95% of my clients. The only ones it doesn't work with is when something traumatic, like caring for someone or a loss or a death, then we have to realign it, and it doesn't always work, or an injury. But otherwise, that generally really works, the ebb and the flow, rather than trying to put all of it in all the time.
That's very interesting. You said also something about saying no, that I think is so difficult, because when it's an habit maybe to say yes, I need to do, especially when you are training, you're pushing quite hard, and at one point you need to start to say, okay, I'm in the recovery moment, and I have to say no, I'm not training today, or no, I can't do this because I need to choose maybe this to eat instead of this. So there is there no. And it's so difficult. That is really a kind of creating an habit. Initially is very, very challenging. So I would imagine that you might have to find a lot of tools to change the habit to people. Is that one of the biggest still?
Yeah, I mean, the no is really, it's like, well, what are you saying yes to, and what are you saying no to? And it comes back to, what makes your identity up? So someone's identity is very much normally wrapped up in the things that they do. And if you're saying do a little bit less of that, then you have to work out the option of what you're going to put in on the other side. So that's why when I'm working with, high achievers, high performers, people who are really determined and focused, we don't work on like say no to start with, because that wouldn't work. But we look, okay, so how can we support this lifestyle better? To back to like, what things would help you, what things you're struggling with. Is it poor sleep? Is it relationships? Is it communication? Is it recovery? Is it you're not getting faster? How can we help you enhance your performance by like reducing those struggles? So it's finding those sort of the problem points.
Sleep is also another very interesting topic, because sleeping is such a personal thing. Not everyone they have the necessity to sleep in the same quantity of time. How do you help people that they have problem with sleeping, especially where they are under pressure? Like, okay, before a race, probably no one is sleeping properly, and you can understand the reason why. Do you have any tools or something that you can share with us?
I'm not a sleep expert, but understand the physiology of sleep. And so I just help people get into basic patterns and routines and just start by, are you scrolling through social media and are you watching Netflix late at night? Because that is 9 times out of 10 going to affect how you go to sleep. If you're on your screens and you're eating late at night and also you're training, say, late at night, all of those things will affect you. Now, with lifestyle, you might be able to change all of them. But as I'm talking, think about like, which one of those could I change? And like, can I put my phone away? Like, I have a rule, like my phone lives downstairs. I have an old school alarm clock. Everybody laughs at me. Anyone who's staying, it's like, I can't believe you do that. That's so retro. But the quality of my sleep, also the quality of my focus in the morning, that the first thing I do is not check my phone. I don't check my phone for the first like at least half an hour because I've switched it off, not even charged it, I've turned it off. And people are like, you turn your phone off? This is an unusual concept.
You're so wise. So thanks so much for taking the time. I know you have a super busy schedule, so thanks so much to share with us your knowledge and your wisdom. As I said before,
my pleasure.
I'm so excited. Thanks so much, really. If people wanted to get in contact with you and follow you, where they can find you on social media?
If you put at Kim Ingleby on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then my business website is Energized with an S, not a Z, performance.com. Do reach out to me. I love when people like get in touch, and if you send me DM or whatever, I will reply. If I'm traveling or working abroad, it may take me a little bit of time, but I love to hear from people. I love to get questions and support you wherever you are in the world. So yeah, connect. It's always great to hear from people.
Wow, that's fantastic. So thanks so much to give us the opportunity to connect you anytime. And this is a privilege. So everyone that listen, take this advantage because it's amazing. She is incredible. Thanks so much. And I hope to have you a guest again.
We can do part 2 with a whole load of other wild adventures and sports stuff and whatever your listeners want. They can send you some comments.
Oh, that's a great idea. Maybe they can ask questions and we can ask it to you.
Yeah. I've done, like, to finish off, I've done 10 marathons around the world in crazy places like Sierra Leone, Nepal, Romania, India. So, like, any questions they can ask and we can do a Q&A or something.
Love it. That is a great idea. Thanks so much for the idea and to put this as a possibility. I definitely wanted to do it. So thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Enjoy the day and thanks so much to have found the time for us.
No, thank you. Thank you for asking me.
I hope you enjoyed the episode as I did while I was recording it. Kim, she is a truly star to share with us so many useful tools that we can use every day to unlock self-limitation. Don't be shy, send us the question for Kim so we can record with Kim a Q&A with your answer. Don't forget to check the show notes where you can find the Energized Performance link, all social media Kim's links, and of course a little list of few books that you might find interesting. And if you are searching a powerful natural alternative to your sport nutrition, check us out at 33fuel.com.